Go for it. Yes, we're going to go for it today. This week in White Supremacy. My name is Jasiri X. I am the co-founder and CEO of 100 Media. And not to my right, but right across from me is... Miracle.
What's up? It's your girl, Miracle, a.k.a. Big Blessing. What's the Big Blessing?
A well-rested miracle.
A well-rested, a non-morning miracle.
Got you.
A regular miracle.
Okay, a normal miracle.
A hopefully normal, happy miracle.
And my brother.
It's your boy Trouble on the Last. Oh, right here. Niggas love sleep. Also, niggas love scents. I got my pen diffuser on me. Just got this today.
Okay.
Excited about it.
What is a pen diffuser? What is that?
It just releases essential oils as I write.
Oh, shit.
Saying, so
Damn, look at you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
James with the James Bond shit. And sir, who are you today, my brother? Nigga broke out. You're not gonna wear that the whole show.
He was ready.
Shiesty Shaheed?
No face, no case.
Shiesty Shaheed?
Yeah, is that? I'm good. Let's go.
And so we have a special guest. If you know the brother is, I was gonna say if you're in Pittsburgh, you know him, but you was on Good Morning America. You know what I'm saying? So the brother is, really has such a powerful story that we are familiar with in Pittsburgh because it happened in Pittsburgh and you're from Pittsburgh. But the brother's been able to tell his story all over the world. And, the stars aligned. You happen to be in Pittsburgh. It's kind of rare. And we texted like 2 days ago, and now you're here on our show. So can you just introduce yourself and just tell a little bit of people about your story and kind of how we ended up in this place we are right now?
Absolutely, man. First of all, thank y'all for having me. This is like my family here.
Absolutely.
And One Hood has supported me from the beginning. And I remember you, Jasiri, just taking my story with you everywhere you were traveling before it became okay to support, and normal for people to support victims of police shootings. I remember a lot of people were afraid.
True.
Yeah, there were people who protested and rallied with me who were afraid they were going to lose their jobs, actually, and so it's like a full circle moment, to be here to have this conversation with y'all today. So
absolutely.
Yeah, man. I'm from Pittsburgh, and when I was 19 years old, I was shot 5 times by a Pittsburgh police officer during what they call a routine traffic stop, which, what is routine about a traffic stop, right?
Right.
We know the officers were fishing. They were, pulling over as many black people as they could pull over that day. They actually ran over 400 plates.
Wow.
During the shift from 3 to 11, and I was shot around 9 p.m. And as a result of that shooting, I ended up paralyzed. I woke up in the hospital. I was actually arraigned from a hospital bed.
That's crazy.
And I was facing time in prison. And so if you can imagine me waking up, a doctor came into my room and said, we have good news and we have bad news. The good news is you're going to survive. The bad news is you will never walk again. I had no, context of like time. So it felt like I just dozed off and woke up with these police officers taking photos of me. And as I was being arraigned. And that was the beginning of my journey, through activism, becoming a community leader, and then, my journey toward venture capitalism and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Author now.
Author.
You just dropped the book, Unspeakable Hope.
Yes, sir.
Which you were on that press tour. Wasn't you with like Michael Strahan or something? Didn't you do something?
Yeah.
No, I think it's amazing. Like you said, like I remember hearing about, I didn't know that the police were doing one of those sweeps where they were just stopping everybody that night.
Oh yeah, it came out in my trial actually.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of information that people don't know.
Right.
That came like the officers actually testified that they were just running plates and trying to stop people. And they ran over 400 plates because we had their MDT, log and everything like that. And it's a practice called fishing, and it's relatively normal within the police department to fish. And it's incentivized, right? Because the more arrests you make, the more, likelihood you have of being promoted.
Yeah.
So it's a structural problem. When I was shot, when you watch the video, I drove off. And a lot of people, even black people in Pittsburgh, they had issues with that. So we have to go back to that moment.
Yes.
I reached out to the Urban League, NAACP, Victims for Violent Crimes. None of the black organizations supported me.
I didn't know that.
Miss Connie supported me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But the Urban League was kind of like, yo, but why'd you pull off? You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I just got shot.
Yeah.
Well, so the officer jumped in my car.
Right.
They were trying to pull me out of the
window.
car.
Out of the window.
Yeah.
And I drove off, and then I was shot, right? While I was driving off. So that was an issue, right? And so in the beginning, it was people like Miss Connie. It was individuals, right? Jasiri in one hood, right? The only groups that supported me, right, were the Quakers.
Wow.
Like the Amish people?
Yeah, the Quakers. Yeah. Like religiously. Yeah.
Are there a difference between Amish and Quakers?
Yes.
I did not know that.
All Quakers aren't Amish.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So
continue. I didn't know.
So they have the Pittsburgh Friends meeting.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was the Quakers and the Nation of Islam.
Yeah. That's a crazy mix.
Those were the
oatmeal and bean pies.
Right? So it's like groups. Those were the only two groups that were just like, yo, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Most of the black-led organizations, right, were very elitist.
True.
Toward me, right? Again, this is before BLM blew up.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was really hard for me to get support. So after my civil trial, which was a hung jury, there was one of the white jurors basically said she refused to see this officer did any harm to me.
That's crazy.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, after we crushed them.
Yeah.
Like we were in our room every day high-fiving, catching them in lies. And I mean, our cross-examinations of them, oh my goodness. It was like, we destroyed them. And so from my perspective, I was like, I tried to be perfect. I proved through not only court but public opinion that I didn't deserve what happened to me, even though I shouldn't have had to prove that, right?
Yeah.
But I felt for a long time I had to prove to society that I was a good person. Otherwise, they justified, right? Because if you're not the perfect victim, then they're like, well, you have a juvenile record and your father was incarcerated and maybe you did deserve to be shot, right? That and unfortunately, there's even some black folks who would think like that. You know what I'm saying?
True. Sadly.
And so I did all these things to make it to this moment to have a hung jury, and I was defeated. And so I remember calling my attorney, Freddie Rabner, and so this is what happened. There was a guy who murdered a cop in New Kensington. Y'all remember that?
When was this?
I don't remember this.
This was maybe 2018.
No, I don't remember this at all.
So there's a guy, he murdered a cop in New Kensington. And I remember watching it on the news, and I called, maybe 2017, and I called my attorney and said, Freddie, my friends are really inspired by what happened out in New Kensington. How could you protect me if I murdered a police officer or if I was associated with it? And he's like, Leon, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what, you know? And,
Wow.
and he's like, and I'm like, bro, like, I don't believe in justice. I'm never going to get justice.
Yeah.
They already took my ability to walk. Like, you know, I already don't want to live. Like, what's up? Like, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, Leon, you're like Dr. King. I'm like, bro, I don't give a about Dr. King.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
who cares? And so he's trying to talk me down. And so he says to me, yo, your mentor in California, he keep asking you to come to California. Just go to California. And like, we'll have this conversation when you come back. And so I was like, all right, cool. That's very logical.
Who's the mentor in California?
Stephen DeBerry.
Okay.
Right. And so I say, cool, I'm gonna go to California, but if I feel the way I feel, like, it's on. You know what I mean? It's like it's going up, right? And so I remember hitting up Steve and booked my flight. So I flew to San Francisco. I remember being on the plane. I had Closer on repeat by Guapale.
Yeah, that's my joint. I ain't going front.
And it was just on repeat, bro. And I'm just like going through it on the plane. And so I landed in San Francisco. And Steve is like, yo, I'm busy. You know what I mean? Here's the, the address to the house you'll be staying at. There's a car in the garage. Make yourself at home. You can take the car and things like that. And so, I had to download an app to open up the door. And it was a beautiful house. There was like a S550 in the garage.
Wow.
The keys was in the drawer in the kitchen. I'm like, text him like, yo, you sure I could drive this car? You know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, And so Steven ended up, inviting people over to the house I was staying at, maybe about 25 people. And we got food and drinks, and we just having a great time, just chopping it up, vibing. And Steven hits the glass, and he's like, hey, I want to get everybody's attention. And he says, do y'all know why y'all here? And I'm looking around like, I don't know, why am I here, And he goes, y'all are here to meet Leon. So I'm looking like, why are they here to meet me? And he begins to tell my story, and he gets emotional while he's telling my story.
Wow.
What I didn't realize was these were a bunch of his friends who he was talking to about police brutality, and a couple of them were like, yo, man, you going too hard on Facebook about the police brutality. And he made it real for them. So they already had spent a few hours with me.
Yeah.
They took a liking to me. And then he drops the bomb on them that Leon was shot by a police officer.
Wow.
So now they're like, how can this happen? And he's like, I've been telling y'all this been happening. You know what I mean? And what I didn't realize is these were a lot of venture capitalists, people from Facebook and all these different tech companies.
Yeah.
And I tell this story, in my book, but one guy, Brad, we were talking, and because of my story, he was very vulnerable with me about things he was experiencing. And Steve comes up to me and is like, yeah, Brad just bought United Airlines.
Wow.
And he goes, well, I acquired it.
That's deep.
So these are the type of people that was in the space. And, I would, begin to have different discussions with Steve about, he's like, yo, what's going on with your case? And I'm telling him, and he's like, yo, settle, civil trials about money. This officer's not going to jail. You know what I'm saying? And if you go to trial again, even if you win, they're going to appeal it, and you could be fighting for another.
You're going to be going on and on and on.
3 to 5 years. And he was like, man, you deserve to live your life. And, I told him what they were offering. And he was like, yo, just take it. You know what I'm saying? And we'll help you invest, and whatever you want to accomplish in life, we got you. Like, you got us. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And it was that moment I text my attorneys. I said, yo, just settle the case. And so, which was completely different than before I left Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I left Pittsburgh fired up,
Yes,
bro.
yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck the system.
Like wanting revenge.
Oh, yeah. And then it's kind of like, you know, in the way I look at it, it's like, it felt like God blessed me for just letting it go, bro. Like,
True.
you know what I'm saying? And for not, you know, leaning into that mindset of revenge. And so now I'm in a space with people who are solving problems on a global scale, right? And that was the beginning of this new trajectory.
I'm glad you were kind of able to find this balance. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Now, but you went further, right, than just a balance, right?
Yeah.
Because then you did this collaboration in terms of the Here Foundation.
Absolutely.
That, like, I would say is controversial, right?
Yeah.
Because you partnered up with the former chief of Pittsburgh Police, who was like in the department when you were shot. How did you come to that decision that you wanted to work with police officers directly? And then how did that, what type of ramifications did that have with your own, like, people that are down with you?
Yeah. So I would say this first, like, my background, like the way I grew up, I always understood power.
Yes.
Right. That, like, I come from a background of, like, hood politics on another level, right?
Yes.
Where a lot of my friends couldn't go into environments I can go into environments like I can go into based on associations and proximity to power. And so me like understand the proximity to power, that's like a part of my DNA, right? So then you have, just for context, so I moved to Europe. And so I'm in Europe. First I did a program for like a month and a half, 2 months, called Remote Year, where you live in a different country for a month, for a year.
Oh,
yeah, it's super cool.
Look at Miracle. Miracle's like salivating over the prospect.
Yeah, so
of doing that.
They have like co-working spaces and different things. So I did that for 2 months, and then a good friend of mine, Dina Kaplan, she hit me up, and she's like, "Yo, I'm just checking in on you." And she's in that space of venture capitalist, and she's a meditation instructor. And I was like, "Yo, I'm in Europe right now. I'm in Valencia, Spain." And she's like, "What? I'm in Rome." Like, and I'm going to this retreat next weekend called Voyagers, and it's in Portugal. And I've been like, I go out every year now. And it's venture capitalists and angel investors from all over the world, Africa, Asia, you know, all throughout Europe. And so I go into that space, and I'm meeting all these people from throughout Europe. And I'm like, oh, I'm quitting Remote Year because I got my tribe now. So now I go to London, and I can meet with, you know, the top entrepreneurs. And these are people who have like, you know, raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And I mean, extremely wealthy people. And so, you know, being around these people who are like thinking globally, like the way they solve problems is different than how I would solve problems as a young man from Pittsburgh, from the hood, super fist in the air. You know what I mean? It was like they were soft, like how do we think about this from a global lens?
Right.
You know? So that gave me a little bit more context for how I solve problems. And then, you know, investing in startups, right? It's like, you know, when I'm investing in startups or if I'm raising money, I'm not leading with like, you know, woe is me, right? Like, I got shot. This is my story. It's like, yo, what is the solution? What are we doing?
Right.
Like we could be empathetic toward you. That's like somebody coming to me and saying like, yo, I'm starting this company because, you know, someone in my family died from cancer, and that's what inspired me. And I'm like, yo, I have empathy for that, but like, how am I going to get a return on my investment? Right. And that's just how I look at problems. And so to come back in Pittsburgh with that perspective.
Right.
And I'm just like, yo, let's figure it out. Right. Like, let's do some things. And I'm talking about love and healing. And then George Floyd's killed.
Yeah.
and I'm going on, and then now I'm connected to, another side of Pittsburgh that I was never connected to, right? Like a lot of wealthy families and, people who really, have a lot of influence and power in Western Pennsylvania. And so when George Floyd was murdered, I went on a rant on social media. I'm calling Bill Peduto racist, Scott Schubert racist, saying they didn't care about black, and I'm getting retweets.
Yeah, of course.
Retweets.
We probably retweeted.
Right. But then like John Henney hit me up, who's like, I talk to John Henney like almost every day. He owns Henney Jewelers,
right,
on what's that, Walnut Street. And so he's like, hey, like, do you really think Phil Peduto's racist? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I don't think so. I really think he's a good person. And would you be open to sitting, like, have you sat down with him, since all this stuff? And I was like, no, I've never, like, we settled the case and he made a comment on the news and I disagree with it, but we never sat down, and the comment that he made was, Leon Ford and his family and the officers and their families can heal.
Wow.
Yeah, now that completely rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so I was like, yeah, I'll meet with him. And so I met with Bill Peduto and Dan Gilman, facilitated by John.
Yeah.
And I really believe, again, proximity to power, proximity to influence, and understanding different relationship dynamics. I believe that if anybody else would have set up that meeting, I would have possibly gotten a different Bill and a different Dan, right? They were very transparent. They were honest.
Yeah.
It was a real discussion. It wasn't like I didn't meet with the mayor and the chief of staff.
Yeah. You met with like Bill and Dan.
Bill and Dan.
Yeah.
And I could hear like the heart, but I understood the blind spots.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Based on, from my perspective, who was advising them and things like that. And I became close with them. Like I still text Bill and Dan. You know what I mean? Like they're like I consider them friends now.
Absolutely.
Right? And on the other side, you have Laura Ellsworth, who is another one of my mentors. Who she's an attorney.
Yeah.
So she reached out to me. It's like, have you ever sat down with Chief Schubert? At that time, I had not. She's like, yo. So I sat down with Scott, and it was the same thing. If anybody else would have put that meeting together, it would have been different. He was transparent. I was transparent. I could see, like, okay, cool. I could see this. And so we would begin to meet, like, every week. And then I would meet, like, other commanders and things like that. And so from my perspective, on one end, I saw that, like, activists would talk to activists, police officers talk to police officers, attorneys talk to attorneys, politicians, they got their group, the academic group. And there was not a real group where people had open dialogue, where it was solutions oriented, right? There would be like certain side conversations like, let's do something. But it was like, what is like the result, right? So I thought about these things, and then I thought about all the different relationships I had. And I was like, man, I'm in a very unique position to bring a lot of interesting people together, right? And so if you look at my board, I mean, I have federal judges, I have people who was incarcerated, right? Like, it was like I have police officers, I have people who don't like police officers, but off the strength of me, they're able to come together, right? Then I also thought about resources, right? So how do I leverage these relationships to funnel resources to people who are really doing the work, right? And so I saw opportunity for that as well. And for me, it's not like I woke up and I'm like, oh, I love police officers now, right? But I understood how, like, politics, if you're trying to do anything through the political lens, it can take a long time, right? And through the philanthropic world, you know, you can kind of expedite some things,
Right.
right? And I just saw, you know, opportunity to, you know, be like, again, be the change,
Yeah.
right? I'm always talking about healing.
Yeah.
I'm always talking about forgiveness. And forgiveness for me, it's not like I don't have to turn the other cheek narrative of forgiveness.
Right.
You know what I mean? For me, forgiveness is about quality of life. And so, you know, can you imagine my quality of life if every time I saw a police car, I was triggered and, you know, I could be having a great day with my son and see a police officers and now I'm upset.
Right.
Right. And so I wanted to take my power back. Right. And so not only, you know, did I take my power back, but I now put myself in a position to distribute resources, right? To, you know, empower people who are dreamers like me, who want to be about the change in community. And so I didn't really get pushback.
Yeah.
And I believe that I didn't get pushback, especially from some of those people in like our launch. Bro, there was people at our launch that I was like, bro, you came out, like, I think you might got a warrant. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? But I've built the level of trust and community where they're like, okay, cool. Like Leon's doing it. You know what I'm saying? So we know Leon's heart. We know his intent. And we know Leon's not going to, like, sell us out.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? I think that played a huge part and a transparency.
Yeah.
Like while I was building it, I was talking about it. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it was exciting for me, you know, because it opened up, it even expanded my platform.
Yeah.
Right? Like the international platform that I have is dope, but through my foundation, I've been able to build those relationships in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I do have one more question. I want to bring the rest of One Hood in. So I guess my question would be, like, you know, a lot of times when you start something, they ask, like, what your theory of change is, right?
Yeah.
And because, you know, we still, like, we're still dealing with a lot of different issues around policing in Pittsburgh, right?
Absolutely.
We had the issue where, you know, a law was passed that basically said, like, those minor traffic stops, like, that would led to your, you know, the incident that happened to you, were, you know, we passed a law to ban those and the police was doing them anyway, right? There's a conversation right now where the police, although we have like a biracial police chief now, we have a black mayor, that the police are possibly doing kind of one of these street crime unit things that we saw led to what happened with Tyree Nickel in Kansas City, right? We just had, I think, like 95 officers like retire. So we have all of these things. Is your theory of change, like, do you believe that like the conversations are what is going to, like, get us to a point where we have, like, equitable policing?
It's complicated.
Okay.
Right. For me, I believe that relationships can do some things that policy can't. Right. And quicker. Because you can make a policy that say this is illegal, but we know some people are going to do what they want to do anyway. Right. I've gotten to a point based on my privilege.
Yes.
I have to call out my privilege.
Yeah.
That changed the way I feel when I drive through Pittsburgh. When I drive through Pittsburgh is different than when I'm in Monroeville.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know the chief, I know commanders, I know some of the patrol officers, right? And it's not lost on me. Some of my friends down Penley, right? Their experiences have been different based on me pulling up and hanging out with them and task force jumping out on them and seeing I'm down there.
Yeah.
And they're like, that, like, what is Leon doing down here?
Right.
Right? And so now they know these folks are associated with me, right? So now when they pull up, they like, yo, what's up? Y'all see Leon lately? And they know, like, oh, okay, we can't do that here. Right. And so it's, it's very human, right, for people to treat you differently based on who you're associated with.
That's true.
Right. Unfortunately, right. And I'm doing my best to do this, but I'm like, my goal is to like this Leon Ford bubble that now like I experience and my son experience.
We got to get a picture of Leon. We got to get an I'm with Leon.
Right. But it's deeper than that, right? Yeah. It's like, you have children.
Yeah.
Do you know your children's teachers?
Yeah, I do, because of the school he goes to.
Right. So like, it's like we have to know our teachers.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's this Chinese store. I know who owns the Chinese store.
Right.
I know the story behind why they opened it. I know who owns the Arabs who own the stores, right? Like, we have to know who the people who are coming in and out of our communities.
I feel you.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And knowing them from a position of power and privilege, people treat you different, and then they treat the people that you're associated with differently, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going into Hooks and you know who owns Hooks, and now your son's going into Hooks,
and they know the owner, it's a different,
true. Right? So this is not just for police, right? But I'm taking that understanding, and how my lived experience was different based on, Ed Gainey knowing my dad.
Right.
Because now it's a different level of like, oh no, I got you, but now I really got you.
Right. And Ed Gainey is our current mayor in Pittsburgh, for those that don't know.
Exactly. And so understanding this, what I'm trying to model is like, we have to know these people.
Yeah.
And obviously there's some, because I've gotten pushback from some activists nationally.
Yeah.
Right? Because I deal with a lot of Republicans.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, they don't care about us and this and that. And I say, well, you may not be in a position of power, but you know me, right? And so I may be able to get an audience with this person. And if I'm not able to get an audience with this person with respect, I know somebody who can.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So I may have to say, hey, let me reach out to John.
Yeah.
Let John have this conversation.
Absolutely.
Right. And so what I'm trying to model is, how do we build relationships, and then how do we barter power?
Okay.
That's all it is for me.
Okay. I have a better understanding that you say it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And Pittsburgh's small enough to do that, bro.
It is. I think, like you said, it's like, if you know them, what they do, what they're supposed to be doing, it does give you a different perspective and power. If somebody rolls up and you officer so and so and and your commander is they will probably behave if you have time to do that. I do want to get to your recent statewide appointment from Governor Shapiro, but I want to open it up to, I know, Farouk, you got your shiesty on, Saeed Shiesty, because we also had
that's a wild racist term, man. To say shiesty on here when we asking for solidarity with Jewish people, that's crazy.
Oh, is that considered anti-Semitic?
That's a huge anti-Semitic slur.
I did not know that.
A shyster is someone is a Jewish person who lent money and would rip people off.
I did not know that.
Yeah, man.
But we call the mass. It's interesting because,
well, I know that, but to say
my bad.
I'm just saying.
He's just doing what he does. He's just doing what he does.
You too smart, nigga. Now be playing.
But that's honest to God how I felt about what you were saying about like police knowing police, right? And I'm glad you broke that down, because I was like, okay, this is an interesting take, right? I look at it as the owner of Hook Fish and Chicken doesn't patrol Wilkinsburg looking to kill black people. And I look at it as, and this isn't an indictment against you, I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of these shop owners, while they have the potential to,
and there have been issues.
There have been absolutely 1,000%.
They kind of strapping up
in
now.
Homewood,
it's kind of wild
across the country, right?
The country,
it happens. Yeah, it happens. I look at it as their job as a merchant is to provide a good or a service to the community.
Yeah,
I look at it as a police officer. a lot of people have the idea of a police officer that they uphold the law. No, they respond to incidents. They aren't legal experts. They
True.
aren't judge, jury, and executioner.
They
have a role to play. So knowing them absolutely is intelligent. Knowing who their commanding officer is, knowing your badge number, knowing all that. But more often than not, with people who aren't recognizable for someone such as yourself, or even us, right, in the city, they will respond, oh, you think you smart. Oh, you think you know your rights. Oh, you think you know what I mean? They come with like an attack against you the moment you start saying, I know the mayor. I know your zone commander. I know your ranking officer. I know this, and this. I know this protocol. That can also irritate police officers.
That is true.
That can also agitate them and create a very hostile situation. And in a lot of these situations, right, police officers respond to cameras violently. They respond to being held accountable extremely violently, specifically in New York, specifically in these larger cities where police have an immense amount of perceived power over the civilian population. And more often than not, those who don't have agency to privilege or access to privilege get victimized when we try to recount these incidents. And I like that you led with, I know I have a privilege. And I also like that you created a delineation between driving in Monroeville, which is a suburb east of Pittsburgh, which is predominantly white, versus driving in the city. I like how, because a lot of people who don't understand Pittsburgh, or even in Pittsburgh, don't understand the dynamics that we have, 95 different police departments in Allegheny County?
I thought it was like 109. I thought it was some crazy number.
So we have more in excess of 90 police departments across the county of Allegheny, where the city of Pittsburgh is located. So you're going to get a different treatment in each and every one of those municipalities that's not city of Pittsburgh. And I appreciate you breaking that down.
109.
It's fucking
We have
mad.
109 different police departments in Allegheny County, which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Very crazy.
That's crazy. So like your treatment isn't going to be unilateral. And again, I appreciate you for breaking that down. Now I know this is not my ministry and that's not the ministry of the organization. However, it does provide some clarity to to the move. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Did you have anything, trouble or miracle?
Growing up, being a black man, stuff, police brutality, but you've also been leading on disability justice work.
Absolutely.
And that is even more systemic because you're traveling around the world, but you're still encountering issues around discrimination with disability. And how has that been?
So this goes back to being raised by two extremely traditional men, right? My father and my grandfather, they raised me to believe the world doesn't care about you. The world is not accessible to you. And if you don't make it accessible to you, nobody's going to help you out. Right. And so when I'm in these spaces with around disability, it's not an expectation of mine that the world is going to be accessible. In fact,
Wow. Yeah.
the moment I leave my house as a black man, as a black disabled man, my reality is that, the world is inaccessible.
True.
Could you say that again, please? Because I need to hear that one more time.
Yeah, as a black man and as a black disabled man.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Right?
We need to send that to the building.
True.
Yeah, so it's not an expectation that the world is going to be accessible.
Yeah.
And so my brain is wired, right, to be in problem solving mode, right? So when I'm rolling down the street, I'm already looking at the curb, right? And I'm like, okay, how am I going to get on this curb? Or how am I going to get to this building? I've had to crawl up steps before. You know what I'm saying? And I just figure it out. And I feel like a part of blackness is figuring it out. So I don't complain about my reality of having to figure it out. I just see it as an advantage, right? And so as I navigate the world as a black man and as a black disabled man, I live in reality. And the reality of my lived experience is yes, I'm going to be judged. Yes, I'm going to be discriminated against. Now I know that. What do I do?
Yeah.
And my problem with a lot of activists is that the way they project themselves on social media is that they have this expectation that the world should be fair and that people should be nice and people should not discriminate.
Yeah. But they shouldn't, but please continue.
But that's
not the reality.
That's just not reality.
Yeah.
I discriminate. Bro, like it's we're human.
Yes.
Right? And I think this is like people might look at me and be like, damn, Leon is giving these people a lot of grace. Because I have to give myself grace.
Yes.
Because I have been homophobic. I have been misogynistic. Yeah. And I may wrestle with thoughts through day to day where I'm like having these like, I'm like, damn, I got to check myself.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? Because of how I was culturally conditioned to see the world.
Yeah.
And so me knowing that about myself, I have to acknowledge how someone else was culturally conditioned to see the world.
Yes.
Right? And I could see their heart, but I have to leverage I have to build a relationship first and leverage my perspective to help recondition them.
Yeah.
The same way some of my gay friends had to help recondition me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, that perspective, that's like a lot of like where my grace comes from for police officers, right? Or for my grace for white people, or for whomever, may have blind spots to my blackness or to my disability, because some people just don't know. Just like I didn't know before I was disabled, I was ableist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like a part of me unpacking a lot of these things from a psychological perspective helps me to show up in the world with a lot of grace and a lot of love.
So speaking of that, because we this whole like podcast really kind of came off a conversation on our social media where we posted about Philadelphia banning like the full mass. Can I call it the push?
Call it a balaclava, what it's actually called.
The balaclava, which was, we called the push ice because of the rapper, right?
Yeah.
Mask. And, kind of, I guess me specifically feeling like, this is reactionary. To me, it reminded me of when Eric Adams came out and said he wanted to ban drill music. And it was like, why would you want to ban kind of a symptom of something instead of dealing with the real problems and issues, right? Instead of really thinking about investing in our community, investing in our young people, we want to say we're going to ban this. But you had a different take on why you felt like
absolutely
the mask should be banned. Can you just talk a little bit about that? And then we can, maybe have a discussion about that.
So there's two things. What I said in the comment, I said it's layered. It's a layered conversation.
Yes. Yes.
I don't agree with it being banned.
Yes.
Right? Let's just say that.
Come on.
Bill, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Quote me right.
I don't agree with it being banned, just like I don't agree with anyone banning drill music.
Right. But you understand.
That's the outside conversation.
Yes. Yes.
The inside conversation, the family conversation is we should absolutely ban drill music. And we should for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
And absolutely ban the mask.
And first of all, right, we have in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And all across the country, before drill music, you had nobody. I've never seen anybody piss on somebody's grave before.
It's probably happened, but we haven't seen it.
We haven't seen.
We didn't have social media to see it.
Yeah, we didn't see it. We had social media since drill music.
True,
right?
But I'm saying, but prior to that, people was probably doing shit like that.
But not, we didn't see it.
But we didn't see it.
And it wasn't,
we didn't see it.
They weren't doing it for clout or clicks.
They're doing it for clout, for clicks.
Yeah.
But that's a social media conversation. That visibility exists. That doesn't exist within a vacuum. That exists due to a lot of innovations and technological advancements.
Exactly. But for me, right, the drill music sparked all of like the rap beef like we've never seen it before.
True.
Like a young person who wants to be a rapper, right, who's not associated with one hood, and wants to be popping, and there's two different rap groups in the school, and they drop that diss song, and I've seen it with my peers. I've seen it happen several times after me, where let's go from my peers. right? There's kids I grew up with on the hill. A minor fight, high school stuff. They take it to the music based on the Chicago drill music, right? That's what they're inspired by.
Yes.
All the language is Chicago drill language.
Yep.
They mimic what happens in Chicago, which we know a lot of people lost their lives.
Yes.
There's two particular groups where I've lost at least 6 friends on both sides.
Wow.
Right? I've been in mediations with Pastor Grayson, and I have to go to funerals for both sides. I'm talking to parents from both sides, and I understand, damn, this is connected directly to the music. And these young people, one second, and these young people don't know how to, view it as entertainment. You feel what I'm saying? So that's the drill music conversation.
Yeah.
The Pooh Shiesty mask conversation, and what you call it, brother?
A balaclava.
A balaclava.
Yeah.
I never even heard that word.
That's the original. That's the actual term for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's rooted in culture, right? Like culturally, Pooh Shiesty popularized it. I didn't see any young people with it before Pooh Shiesty. Pooh Shiesty's incarcerated right now for like a robbery or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've seen the criminalization of the, how do you say it again?
Balaclava.
Balaclava.
You can call it a bally or a ski mask. We call it a bally. Yeah, we call it a bally when I was growing up.
Ski mask.
We've seen the criminalization of the bally.
Yeah.
Right? And we see a lot of people rocking the culture based on how it's been criminalized.
Right.
In our community. That's why I said this is a family conversation.
Yeah.
So my problem with, if we know about the systemic oppression.
95% of our viewers on YouTube are white males.
Wow.
So is this a family conversation?
But we're having it as
I know.
But go ahead.
So, what was I saying?
You said
Systemic
we know.
oppression.
Yeah.
Systemic oppression, right? We know how we are treated by police. We know what goes on in the community. If we know these things, why make a conscious decision, and why allow internally, right? Like I said, my son's not wearing the bally.
Right. See, it sound good to roll up.
He has the right to.
Right? But that's why I said there's two conversations happening. There's the policy, which I disagree with, but as the family conversation, I'm like,
the more cultural nuance.
Yeah, it's like, don't wear a bally. Because like I said, if I'm with my brother who's very overprotective, right? And he's licensed to carry, and there's a young guy walking down the street with a bally, my brother, his perspective is, Leon, you do well for yourself, and the economy's messed up, and I don't know why you be in Pittsburgh, right? You need to get a firearm. This is a conversation, right? If a young man with a bally is walking down the street, my brother's clutching like, yo, who's this? Now I'm like, yo, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So just imagine if this young man has friends behind us on the next block, and he's walking, and he got his hands in his pocket, and he got some headphones on, and he gets close enough to the car, then he starts jogging or running. Bro, it could get real ugly, bro. And so again, I don't agree with the ban, but I feel like as a community, we should regulate what's going on. Okay.
So I want to push back a little bit.
Miracle Esquire. Come on now.
I'm going to be nice. So you talk about you have all of these friends who are venture capitalists and billionaires.
Yeah.
So why don't we change the conditions where people are doing the drill music because they know that gets them a record deal?
True.
So why can't we have some record management say, you know what? We're only signing people who don't mention guns, who don't mention violence, who talk about the realities of their lives, but do it a different way, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are talking about what is happening to them. The funerals, that is their reality.
Yep.
In Woodland Hills, I think it was like for like a year and a half, it was over 15 kids were murdered.
Yep.
So they're talking about their reality. So why don't we actually change the reality of our youth? And that's part of it. The second thing is, I feel that one or two people do something, and then we start to fear our own youth.
Right.
And we then create policies that make it harder for the youth. I remember when school started last year, they sent all the girls home who had holes in their jeans because they thought the school policy was that you couldn't have holes in your jeans.
Right.
Instead of just saying, hey, this is what we would prefer when you come to school tomorrow, we would like you to just have clothes with no holes in them. They sent these girls home. And so for me, I'm always going to be opposed to any type of policy that automatically criminalizes people and automatically reinforces that our kids are something that we should be afraid of. I believe that we have to invest in our kids, and I believe we have to motivate people to change. Because Pooh Shiesty was one rapper, right?
Right.
You tell me another rapper can't come out here and say it's a good thing to have your face showing. You couldn't get a rapper to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So to that point,
that's where my thing is. Before we criminalize something, let's give people alternatives.
Right.
You know, we talk about 2020 started, people robbing people. Well, in 2020, though everything was shut down and our government failed to provide people housing, our government failed to give people food, our government failed. And so we know when government fails, crime goes up. And instead of saying, you know what, we didn't plan to help people, we told people they had to stay home and not work. And then we were like, oops, you're getting evicted because we told you to stay home and not work. And then we cut all of the funding. Maybe push government to change. And that is where I am. Why do we always have to start with our kids and our most vulnerable?
So here's the thing. At the beginning of this interview, I said, or I mentioned, there's different types of black people.
True.
We do not have a united front, and we allow a lot of foolishness to just go on within our culture. When Lyor Cohen got on the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne pushed back on him.
He did.
Yeah.
And he said, well, why do you sign these types of artists? And if you know it's perpetuating this drug epidemic, it's perpetuating violence. And he said, well, I have people to feed.
Yeah. He did.
And we didn't do anything.
No.
And when I challenge people on the sexy reds and, these people within our culture who
Miracle Gods
who
we know.
Here's the thing, right? We tolerate dysfunction for the sake of the bag.
So can I jump in here?
Wow.
I think it's right, and I think that there is a point. But my point is, you have the connections to those people in power, right? Why can't then that conversation be like, you know what?
Because Leon could say it.
No. I'm talking about your private conversation.
Yeah. But here's the issue. Leon could be like, yo, this is problematic. But when you have 100 other people who are like, yo, man, like I'm going to the Bunny Bag Yo concert, and you know what I'm saying? And we have to have a united front where we're like, yo, Lyor, we're not entertaining this anymore.
I'm gonna push back because you have Meek Mill saying he wasn't gonna talk about murder anymore. You have D1 calling people out. You have NBA YoungBoy talking about he wants to change. So I think it's there. But and as a venture capitalist, a part of that is you putting out this theory and then getting people to coalesce around it and not needing a bunch of people to push it.
Where's the venture capitalist funding one hoods?
I know people hate Lil Nas X, right? But Lil Nas X proved you didn't have to talk about murder and violence. You also have, oh my God, he was just here, Rod Wave. He's talking about depression and mental health.
Yep.
Not mostly violence. So you have, the mumble rap. You have people doing, the rock rap stuff now who are not talking about murder, drugs, and violence. And I think that is your proof of concept.
Absolutely.
That people can push something else. But I do think because you're in those spaces, you can be like, nah, we're going to try this.
Right at this table that would
volunteer
for venture capitalist support.
But here's the thing. I will have to convince people to get into music and entertainment, which I'm not interested in music and entertainment. That's just not my thing. And so what I'm saying is we have to hold the people, the puppet masters, per se, within the music and TV industries, right, accountable.
Yeah.
And we gave Lyor a pass, bro.
Yeah.
Like on that interview when he said what he said, that was the perfect opportunity for us to hold him accountable and a few people did, but again,
as a whole,
we just kind of let that, fall to the wayside.
Now, you want to jump in, Farouk.
I agree with you that more people should have pushed back against Lior.
1,000%.
Right? 1,000%. That was an entirely missed opportunity, and I applaud Charlamagne for bringing it up, man, like him, but like also us as a culture for not pushing back on that. However, what I will stand on is I'm a little older than you, but when we were wearing baggy pants, and even though the oversized shit has come back now,
true,
they wouldn't let us in stores with baggy pants because they said it was too easy to steal things. And then they wouldn't let us in stores with backpacks.
Yeah,
they said the rucksack, you could put shit in there. And then Gerardo Rivera jumped entirely out of his fucking face and said Trayvon Martin deserved to die because he had a hoodie on.
Right.
And then there was the ban around, we have to ban hoodies. And then we should also ban book bags in
unless
stores.
you're Mark Zuckerberg.
Or if the book bag, or make the book bag clear. Mm-hmm. That was the response. Make the book bag clear. And now it's the balaclava. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between a ballet and a COVID mask? Because Lil Durk said bro slid with a COVID mask, right? The COVID mask can cover the face in the same way. And we were supposed to wear masks, right? For a whole entire year, we were supposed to wear masks. So in introducing legislation against garments of clothing, because all of a sudden it fits a specific narrative, that becomes tied into the systemic oppression and violence that happens only in our community, right? Mm-hmm. When white kids that hunt wear ski masks to school, no one says anything. When it's cold weather gear and you see white people out jogging, no one says anything. When their faces are covered completely when they're jogging in the snow, or, Pittsburgh is a windy city, Chicago, any of these North Atlantic cities that have high wind chill factors, no one says anything when white people are wearing the same exact clothing. So then it becomes a matter of, well, what are you policing? Are you policing the clothing or the people?
So I have a comment on that. One of our least favorite mayors, Eric Adams, is actually...
His son tried to be a drill rapper.
They're actually talking about legislation that says any face covering, that you're going to have to remove any face covering going into a store, any of them. So again, COVID's still going on, but they saying like, yo, we don't care. If you walk into a store, you have to remove face coverings because of the response. And I'm so glad you put your hand up, Trouble, because you've been quiet. And so I do think like, you're right. And obviously, right. But I do think we have to have, like, it's a conversation amongst us as to why, right? So that we can have an internal conversation and say, oh, you want to wear that mask, why? And that, do you know by wearing that mask that it actually could bring more drama into your life than not wearing it, right? Just like you said, as a dad, I have a 12-year-old son, and these are the conversations I'm having with my son, right? Around, like, how people will perceive you. Because remember, I mean, we live in Pittsburgh. The south side of Pittsburgh is notorious for profiling particularly black men, particularly Steelers. Right?
I'm about to say the Steelers aren't even exempt from that. They take Super Bowl champions out.
Yeah, and it's like if you have Timberlands on or if you have Jordans on,
no athletic gear, no ball caps, nothing like that.
Which are things like we like to wear. So we are used to kind of this thing, but I do think that all of these conversations, we talk about reimagining public safety. And the conversation I've always had internally with the different partners, particularly when we were part of that coalition, was the conversation we have to have with black people. Because when you talk to older black people, they're scared. Older black people are scared about the violence. They watch the news. We're not watching the news. They watch the news. The news is leading with violence all the time. Even though violence is down, homicides are down. And homicides are down really nationwide. You know what I'm saying? There are some robberies that are up, but overall violent crime is down nationwide. However, these older black people watch the news and they're scared and they want more police, right? Because they don't really understand anything beyond police as a response to violence, right? So those internal conversations are important conversations that we have to have about why we're doing things. Treble, you are our youth voice.
Yes, indeed.
And again, this is, not to put all the bad of this generation on you, but like this is your generation, right? Where we're seeing like a Sexy Red being like one of the top. Like, how do you process like
why you gotta bring
these conversations? And how is your generation kind of seeing what's happening?
So I have a couple of interesting comments. One, I want to lead with I kept in mind what you said about the people that you're in a room with who have power and proximity to power. They problem solve on a different level, right? They're innovative in the way that they think about problems and how to approach them and stuff like that. That's how I think. You know what I'm saying? When I see a problem,
Talk your shit, Trevor.
you feel me? When I see a problem, I see solutions, I see opportunities, right? I have an Emmy Award winning poem by the name of Don't Clip Our Tails that beautifully fits into this conversation.
It does. Damn, I never
Because
thought about
I
it.
had literally had a conversation.
Great drop and great plug for
like
yourself.
this. You know what I'm saying? Where I realize that too often in this conversation, there's a criminalization of culture, and we want to ban the way people show up rather than using that as an opportunity for education and conversation. You know what I'm saying? Because you know about power. On a personal level, as people, we need the power to make our own decisions. But we also need to be equipped with what consequences come with those decisions. You know what I'm saying? But we also need to have the space to present as ourselves. If something has been adopted into our culture, why can't we rock it? You know what I'm saying? Don't Clip Our Tails is a conversation for everybody, people in power and people in proximity to power and people working on their personal power, people who are oppressed by power, basically saying like, don't police the way we show up. Instead, have conversations about the ramifications of policing people for the way they show up. So instead of like, the way I see it, instead of, you know, banning your children from wearing the balaclava, have a conversation with your kid about, okay, these are the ramifications. This is what could happen. This is the relevancy. And this is the way that you can show up differently, right? I think we're at a table, we're in a space where like what we do at One Hood is such a beautiful example of what could happen internally in families and in households, which is like media literacy. You feel me? When you see Pooh Shiesty with this mask on, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Do you have to wear the mask because he's wearing it? Who are you outside of the entertainment that you're influenced by? How can you utilize that influence to make positive change? And how can you show up in your art form, in your schools, in your spaces in a way that utilizes your power intentionally? You know what I'm saying? And I feel like instead of telling our kids, hey, don't wear this, don't do this, don't listen to this, it's like, I feel like we could be having conversations like, all right, let's listen to this and let's break it down and let's realize that what we're listening to is a reflection of someone else's life. Do you have to live that? Are these your circumstances? Are these ways that you have to operate? And as parents, we need to start thinking, well, I'm not a parent, but I feel like more parents need to start thinking about, okay, if we don't want our children growing up doing these certain things, how can we put them in certain circumstances to where they're utilizing their power in different ways?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? To where they're not seeing this as an equitable option to harm other human beings, but rather how can we kind of like, because I wish that I was in a more privileged perspective growing up. You know what I'm saying? I wish that I had certain resources and certain access to certain circumstances, but like I didn't use that to vilify myself. Once I realized the underhand that I had, I was like, okay, how can I strategically think about this differently? You know what I'm saying? How do I educate myself on the systems that are actively against me, and how can I utilize optimism in a beautiful way? And I say that because when I hear your story, I hear optimism used in the most beautiful way. Because I see optimism as not like just look on the bright side, but rather let's look at the reality of the situation that we're in. Let's look at the reality of the circumstances at hand, and let's utilize them and optimize them, right?
Absolutely.
How can we take the circumstances that we're given, the card that we're dealt, and still end up on top in our own way? You know what I'm saying? It's like, even when things get dark, how can we use that darkness and kind of like monetize it or even like come up on it? You know what I'm saying? That's what I see when I hear Joe rap. It's like, okay, they're putting their life in the song and they know that people are going to be influenced by this. But as people with influence, how do we educate young minds to know that this is someone talking about their lives?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This doesn't have to be your life. What is your life and how can you put it into art?
I'm glad you said you are you're like a walking optimism like poster. I mean, because of like how you took what happened to you. The last thing, because we took a lot of your time. We went mad over. I did want to end with the Clear Commission. You were by our Governor Shapiro. You were put as one of the commissioners on this CLEAR commission around looking at law enforcement and mental health and advocacy. You know, I guess like what is your, and CLEAR stands for Citizen Law Enforcement Advisory. Citizens Law Enforcement Advisory and Review Commission. So just how do you feel about that? You know what I'm saying? Talk about a full circle moment. You know, yeah, now you're on this commission that can help change policing for the better, not just in Pittsburgh, but across the state.
Absolutely. It's extremely encouraging and inspiring to go from someone who, I mean, I had 2 gun cases as a juvenile.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had 2 gun cases as a juvenile, Schumann Center, the SIS program. I did all that.
Oh, shit.
Again, this is why a lot of people didn't want to support me in the beginning.
Right.
Which is still bullshit.
Exactly.
Right? But to now be on a CLEAR commission with retired judges and attorneys and a lot of, you know, people who come from the criminal justice system, this is an example of, you know, understanding the reality, having those real conversations and moving accordingly, right? I like what you were saying, you know, because you basically acknowledge like all the systemic issues. You acknowledge the narrative and the true stories that people are sharing. But you also was like, yo, we got to move. We got to acknowledge the reality and move accordingly, right? Like if we know what's up against us, how do we position ourselves to win, right? And I think this is a testament to, you know, the vision, right? And how I position myself to evoke change on a larger scale. And so I'm extremely, you know, inspired by it. And I'm excited, you know, to move forward. We'll be not only investigating, you know, state police, but also the Department of Corrections.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm really excited for because I have several loved ones who are incarcerated who, you know, are just living in poor conditions. You know? So, yeah, you know. And one other thing I wanted to say, how I lost it. Someone, I think it was you that said something about it, but it's cool.
Well, so we want to, you have your book?
Oh, I do.
Where's it? Oh, so obviously our white pages for this episode is Leon's book on Unspeakable
I like that it has
Hope.
pretty colors on the cover because I can't read.
Brutality, Forgiveness, and Building a Better Future for My Son. That's one thing about you we didn't get into, man. Like normally, like your sons you always have like family with you and around you. Or young people, man. You mentored a lot of young people, you know, Khalil, and you see the great work that young Black motivated kings and queens are doing. So you've poured into our community in a very positive way. We could have 2 more hour discussions on a lot of the work that you do that people don't know. Like I'm blessed because I know the people whose lives you touch behind the scenes,
right? And
I know a lot of stuff you did behind the scenes that haven't been publicized. And so I just want to thank you for that. So we're encouraging everybody in Unspeakable Hope. This is the Leon Ford behind this book. So support this book, buy this book. And with that being said, do you have any final words to the people?
Man, I just want to encourage everyone to just stay positive and optimistic.
Yes.
You know, but also be realistic about the problems and the issues that we're facing in society. And then find someone to collaborate with, to love on, to, you know, help you, help assist you with coming up with a solution and making change.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Have a final word for the people.
Yes.
Because we have such a powerful guest on here. If you're watching this, I just want you to take this message with you. People who look like us, right? Use Leon's story as the reason why it is okay to choose your peace. You know what I'm saying? No matter the situation that you're in, you know what I'm saying? Like, you saw how Leon chose, instead of retaliation, to settle the case for his own peace, able to build the power that he has now leveraged to be as successful as he is. So I just hope that you take that away with you.
That might be the title. Choose Your Peace.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
Leon
powerful.
Ford, Choose Your Peace. I like that. Miracle?
know I love you. I got love for you.
I love you
I'm
too.
so happy that you came and sat down with us. Always fun.
It all started from a comment.
All started from a comment, man, on IG. Your final comment, no face?
No face.
No comment.
Okay.
With that being said, this has been This Week in White Supremacy. Special episode with the great Leon Ford. We'll see y'all next time. Peace. One hood, y'all.